and we're really happy to be here. We're going to talk about our pathways into UX, how we got to our positions, and just some, hurdles along the way, some wins along the way, and then we're going to have some panel discussions and time for Q&A at the end. Just to wrap all that up, we are going to have a portfolio review session after the happy hour. So if you do have a portfolio with you, you have your website available. We do have a sign-up sheet on the bulletin boards out there. So yeah, we'd love to see you after the happy hour. And we also have different experiences too. So if you have someone in particular that really resonated with you today and you wanted them to review your portfolio, there is an option for a preference on who would review your portfolio. So yeah, let's dive on in. So really quick agenda that I just went over. So who we are, what UX is, and I'm sure a lot of you know what UX is, UX Day. And then we're going to go into our journeys and then panel questions and Q&A. So again, my name is Mary. I'm a staff product designer at Rocket Communications. I primarily work with Space Force and NASA at Rocket. We are a UX firm, so something that is not normal in the UX world. We have about 50 employees, and out of that, we have about 25 that are just UX designers, so it's fantastic. And then we have Jen, who is a UX senior manager at Discount Tire, and then Teresa, who is a UX manager at Leslie's Pool Mart. And they are the UXPA Arizona Board of Directors. I was the former president, and then I moved to Denver, so they are now in charge. All right, so a little bit about the UXPA. We are a worldwide organization. We have chapters around the world and also in the United States. So there's 59 local chapters. We have a conference every year. It's a week-long conference just like this one. And within our organization, we do a lot of education, but we also do a lot of team building and a lot of networking. So if you are looking for a position or you are just looking to learn more about UX, this is definitely the community to join. And as I was saying, the UX Arizona chapter, that's like kind of our mini little home here. So if you are from Arizona, or if you're not, there's probably another chapter that's active in your area. But if you are from Arizona and you would like to connect with more UX people, we have events, we're planning more virtual events. So we would love to see you there. And yeah, I'm going to pass it on over to Teresa.
Good morning. I'm Teresa, and so what is UX? How many of you are like in UX right now, or are you just working in it? Some of you? Are you guys just getting started, or how many of you have been in it for less than 2 years? Some of you, okay. So we have a good seasoned crowd here, it looks like. So I don't probably need to spend a whole lot of time on this. User experience, sometimes known as product design, is an empathy-based approach of designing products and systems. We definitely are interested in making sure that the customer or the users are at the center of everything that we do. So we research the customers, and sorry, I'm getting a little choked up. So part of the process is, getting to know the users in depth. And we do that through a series of different types of interviews, moderated testing, where we sit down with them and watch what they do to understand where they might be having trouble. Sometimes we ask them questions, sometimes we do other activities to understand how their brain wraps around the product that we're trying to build, what goals they're trying to achieve with that product, and whether or not we're meeting those goals. So human factors has the scientific and methodological grounding that we need to work with customers and help them have an easier time using the products that we're building. Why does it matter? It's pretty self-explanatory. The easier something is to use, the more likely people are to use it, and the more successful that product is going to be. One of my favorite examples is, have any of you ever read the book, The Design of Everyday Things? Yeah, a lot of you have. So you guys have heard of the Norman door. I recall an experience one time, my first time ever going into an Apple store. I didn't understand how to use the door. It was very beautiful. I could see in the store, I could see everything they had on display, and I didn't understand how to go in until I saw somebody coming out. And that's when I saw, there was no handle, there was no like little push or pull symbol anywhere, and the door was really heavy. So just kind of testing it didn't really do anything either. So those are the kinds of problems that we try to solve. It's functional as well as beautiful. So UX is very important to make things great. And I am going to pass it back off to Mary for her experience.
Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, so we're going to dive into our journeys now and our backgrounds. So I've been in UX for 10 years. I have been in design for 15 years. I started as a graphic designer. I graduated from Art Center College Design in Pasadena. And I am, again, a staff designer at Rocket Communications. I've worked across the board in many industries. Again, working for NASA right now with Rocket Communications, Salesforce, NFL Network, Fandango, AMC, Discount Tire, a lot of professional athletes, a lot of sports teams, the CDC, University of Phoenix, the DoD, the DOJ, and then more recently, NFTs and crypto. I am NMG Master Certified, and I am the former lead director of the UXPA. I write on Medium. I do have some codes in the back. Most of my articles are paywalled, but I have some friend codes for you guys, so they aren't paywalled today. And then I have a TikTok account, UX with Mary, where I talk about different UX methods and just kind of going through other UX evaluations and fun stuff like that. And we're live streaming now, so hi people. So my journey is a little chaotic, but it's a little all over the place. I actually was very fortunate to start my design journey in high school. We had a graphic design class, so I started with 1 hour of graphic design, 1 hour of fine art, and by the time I graduated, I was taking 3 hours of graphic design, 1 hour of 3D art, and 1 hour of fine art, and I was freelancing. So that really helped me build my portfolio to get into Art Center. From there, Art Center, if you guys don't know about it, it's one of the top schools in the world. It's like design boot camp. Like you go straight into your major and more people are crying than anything else. It's just very intense. 5 hours of people just tearing each other apart, portfolio reviews every single day. So had to move to LA for that. I freelanced through college. I worked with a lot of sports teams and athletes at that time. And then I did an internship with Arizona Rattlers. Got a little homesick and I was like, what sports team can I find that will take me? And it was between the Diamondbacks and the Rattlers better offer. So by the time I was graduating, in 2016, UX and UI hadn't even been a topic of conversation in the United States, let alone something that I could take in school. So I went to my advisor and I was like, what is this? I've read all these articles, what is UX, what's UI, what's the difference? And he was like, I don't know, you're graduating, good luck. And so I kind of was like, well, I guess it's not gonna apply to me. I also did an internship with the LA Kids at the time, that was happening, so it's kind of like, oh, I'll just stay in sports and graphic design. I worked for Stone Creative in LA for a bit. That's where I worked for Fandango, AMC, NFL Network, E-Network. And then I got homesick. I decided to go back to Phoenix. My creative director was like, go have fun in Phoenix. We'll see you. We have a different design brief when you come back, and I just never went back. So then I started looking for jobs in Phoenix, and I was hired at the University of Phoenix, and that's where I actually got my start in UX. They have an amazing like UX user testing lab there, and I had a portfolio with a lot of like app and web design. And at the time, that was graphic design. So I got hired. I remember leaving the parking lot and being like, I got the job, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I kind of went in and kind of learned and realized like this is what I've always wanted to do. Really just understanding that when I was in school, I was designing for people, and that's what was not working well with my degree. They were like, you have to think outside of the box, think of a restaurant on Mars or something. And I was like, no, I want to design for real people. I want to use data. I want to use psychology to make sure that this brand is successful. And that was not falling well on my professor's ears. So when I got into UX and I was like, I'm finally helping people. I'm finally designing with a purpose and with data. This is everything that I wanted. So from there, I went to Discount Tire. And that was the most fun job that I had in UX. I was able to do any sort of product that I wanted. So I worked on like kiosks, I worked on Google Home devices, I worked on AR tire pickers, and anything else I could think of. They were like, yes, 100%, let's do it. So lots of exploration there, and it's still cool to go to a Discount Tire and see the application that I made in the works being used. So that's really cool. After that, I went to Connexa, where I met Teresa. She actually hired me. Thank you. So yeah, that was my first government contracting job with the DoD. I accomplished my NNG Masters, and then I started writing for Medium for the UX Collective. In 2020, with the pandemic, I got really bored, so I started a TikTok where I started talking about UX principles and designs. My most famous TikTok series was about dark UX patterns. And this actually led to an investigation of a politician by the New York Times. So that was kind of like blown out of proportion after I kind of pointed out like there's dark UX patterns on this website. So that was crazy. And then after that, you know, started the UXPA Arizona chapter, saw that it was kind of, you know, it was existing, but there was no one really doing any activities. It was a blank web page pretty much, and I was like, I want to start this up. So together, the three of us started it, and then from there, went to CACI, my second government job, with the DoD, DOJ, intelligence, CDC, exact opposite of Discount Tire. Like getting user experience, like user data at all was like a 7-month process, and you could only go once, and it was just the exact opposite. You want to use AR, VR, good luck, that's not going to happen. So very different from Discount Tire. And with CACI, I had to move to Denver, and so then I handed over the chapter. And then I was hired at Salesforce. I was like, I have to get out of government, got to do something different. So I went to Salesforce, and then I was freelancing with crypto, NFT, and Web3. And then after Salesforce, I started working at Rocket Communications. So another government contracting job, but this one is a lot more fun because we have more support because we are a UX firm. And yeah, that's my journey.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Whittingham. I have been 6 years leading design and research teams for many companies. I've been 15 years in UX and 20 years in design. I graduated from Arizona State University with an interactive computer graphics degree and design. The internet wasn't really a thing. I think my senior year, I'm a lot older than these two, but my senior year, I remember them showing me the internet, and it was just text going, and I thought, how does anyone find anything on that? And that's when Adobe came out with Photoshop and Illustrator, and I thought it was the coolest thing. So I switched from architecture into engineering and got my degree in interactive computer graphics. I am the senior manager of UX design and research over at Discount Tire. I don't know how many of you get your tires done there, but that's really UX and customer experience as well, because that's that end-to-end piece from hitting the website to actually driving out with your tires. So it doesn't matter how well you do the UX part of it, if you don't have the customer experience at the end, it's all a bad experience. So moving more into customer experience as well. Over my years of doing this, I've worked for many, many companies. I've worked for small businesses. I worked for agencies when I first got out of school, and then I moved to Silicon Valley, and I worked for startups, and that is really kind of when the web blew up, and we were able to buy all the holiday domain names because no one knew what a domain name was. So that was really fun, and I'll walk you through a little bit of that. I've also worked for large corporations, so McKesson, Hewitt Construction, and Discount Tire. And I'll tell you what I learned from each of those. And then at the end, if you have any questions on, do you want to work at a small business? Do you want to work at a startup? Do you want to work at a corporate company? They all have their benefits and they all have their faults, but I can tell you, a little bit about what they are, so you can decide what's best for you. I am also NNG certified on the leadership side, and as Mary mentioned, we're all on the board of UXPA Arizona. I mentor on Springboard and for ASU, and my proudest accomplishment is that I am the mom of 2 amazing daughters. One of them just got their master's degree in UX. Yes, ASU offers a master's degree now. I think she was the 3rd class to graduate with that, which is super exciting. And my other one went into social media marketing. So they're kind of following in my footsteps. And Mary, I don't know how to, oh, there we go. So this is kind of my journey. I know a lot of you probably do journey mapping in your work. If you don't, a journey map is typically, when you look at it, the smiley face is kind of the delight scale. The sad face is the frustration scale. And then the middle guy is just a normal experience. It's not amazing, it's not terrible, it just gets the job done. And so normally in UX, when we use a journey map, we'll map someone's journey in purchasing a car or, buying ice cream or whatever it is. And you'll map their journey of where they're happy and sad. You'll look at the lowest points on that journey, and those are your pain points. And if you can look at those pain points and solve for those pain points, even if you bring it up to just the middle face, you have a better experience. If you can bring it up to the smiley face, now you're creating a delightful experience, and then you can just keep doing that with the journey, is looking at those low points and solving for them. So my journey, I graduated from ASU. It was a great time. I had the time of my life. I had no responsibility, and I did what I loved. As I mentioned, I was in architecture and then switched to engineering. UX wasn't really spoken about, but there's so many similarities between architecture and UX. It's really, when I have to explain UX to people, that comes in handy, because I'm like, UX is kind of encompassing of the entire house, right? You need to sit down, you need to find out from your client, how many people are in your family? How many bedrooms do you need? How many bathrooms do you need? And really learn about that user you're building that house for. And then after that, now you've got, the interaction designer or the person that is designing the flow of the house. You don't want the bathroom connected to the kitchen. That's kind of gross. So you're deciding what are the right flows through the house and everything else, and it's that kind of blueprint of the house. And then you have the development, which is building the house. And then at the end, you have the interior designer, or what we call our user interface designer, that comes and decorates the house and puts the colors in and the curtains and the furniture and everything else. So that's really what architecture taught me, if I go back to my education, how the parallels are there. So out of college, I went and started working for a design agency. I worked on the land of Uco for the Phoenix Zoo, and I also worked for a company called Education Management Group, doing a lot of their graphics and their animations for that, which was fun. After that, we moved to the Bay Area because my family lived there, and we were going to raise our family, and it was kind of, the internet was coming out, it was kind of starting to boom. There were buildings with pool tables in it, looked pretty cool. And so went to Silicon Valley. I joined my first startup over there. It was really exciting. Like I said, the internet was brand new. No one knew what a domain name was, but they did. So we purchased every holiday domain name. We had Santa.com, Christmas.com, Valentine'sDay.com, and we created the holiday channel. Really fun company. What we learned is you can do anything you want to because development was so new, it was just experimentation to make it happen. So it was super exciting. We put on the very first cyber parade in downtown San Francisco off of the wharf. We worked with Build-A-Bear to build all our characters out. We had Christina Aguilera on our float, and we had what we called the cyber sled that dropped presents. So it was really fun. After that, when the houses, we were looking for houses because I had 2 babies. The houses were bidding $1 million over the million. We decided it was time to leave. And so we moved back to Phoenix. And here, I had 2 little girls. I didn't want to miss out on them, so I started up my own company, and I started doing anything from branding, websites, whatever people needed. And I did that in my time so that I could raise my 2 girls. And I learned a lot there around business, about scope creep, how do you keep your clients really aligned so you're not turning it over all the time. And then after that, one of my clients based out of LA was called Me Too, which was kind of the Latino BuzzFeed. And they said, hey, will you come and be our director of UX? So I decided closing my laptop when I went on vacation or at 5 o'clock sounded pretty good. So I said, yes, I will come and do that. So I worked with a lot of influencers and pairing influencers with products and brands and understanding how incredibly powerful that is. So we built the platforms that did that. We worked with the influencers on building out their audiences and everything on the websites. Super fun time, a lot of learnings there. I was probably the only, I don't know if this is gonna sound bad, but white girl working there. So there was a lot of trust building. Like, why are you here? This is a Latino company and you're not. And so tons of learnings there, but they've become some of my best friends through that. A lot of growing up for me too and understanding. So there was a lot of really cool lessons there. And then let's see, then I left there because a Colombian company purchased them, and I went to work for Qit, which was a construction company, and we worked on their building estimating and scheduling software. A lot of agile teams working in that, and just how much you can learn from data behind that as well. So by putting the data behind the designs, we were able to learn that in Denver, it takes 30 days extra to build a building because of the rain. And so you actually can now bid out your projects to encompass that, so you're not actually losing money on the project while it's raining. And then I left Qit, went to work for another design agency called Tallway for a little while. And then McKesson reached out to me, which is, it was a Fortune 7 healthcare company, and I worked for them. That was super rewarding because I worked on a lot of oncology patient apps that bring the medicine to them. And this was also during COVID. So McKesson was the sole distributor of the COVID vaccine. And so we literally had 2 weeks to figure out how to get the distribution centers and everybody together and the software and get them connected to the company to get these things out as fast as possible. So one of probably my most rewarding jobs out there was, and exciting jobs out there. And then I went to Discount Tire. And at Discount Tire, I'm also running their design team. We're working a lot around many different technologies to give you the most safe, inviting, experience there. Probably many of you, I'm guessing, go to a discount tire, and people love the experience they get there. And so that's pretty much my journey. So I'll pass it on to Teresa. Okay, next slide.
So I was a little bit all over the place in the beginning. I started my journey in astrophysics, so that's a little bit different. And I grew up in California. I graduated in 2002 from high school, and then I moved to Tucson because I wanted to be an astrophysicist. And I started school, and I worked for this little company called the International Dark Sky Association. If any of you are from Arizona, there's a good chance you've probably heard of them. But they were just a little tiny nonprofit company, but I had an opportunity to work with some astrophysicists there and stuff, and through that I realized I really liked it more as a hobby than as like a profession. So then began my waffling. I had a lot of majors in college. I went through a lot of different things. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I had all this math and stuff under my belt. So I tried majoring in math for a while. I tried majoring in computer science. And then eventually I got married and I had a child, so I stopped going to college for a little while. And then I realized I want to do something where I could potentially be with my kids. So I started teaching myself how to build websites, and that kind of was where I got my beginning, I guess, in UX, and kind of out of the sciences. I sat down on a computer and I just started teaching myself how to do it. I learned graphic design on GIMP, and I learned how to code in Notepad, and I started building terrible things. They were really bad. Like, I've recently gone through some of those things, and I'm very embarrassed at some of the things I made, but people did start paying me for them, so I started freelancing. And I met this guy that had a freelance business that he was trying to get out of, and he kindly gave me all of his clients. In retrospect, I don't know what he was thinking, because, as I mentioned, I was actually kind of terrible, but I think he really wanted to get out of it. So I acquired all of these clients, and I started running my own business. And that was quite an adventure. I think many designers, a lot of you have probably tried that. It's a lot of work to manage your own business. So it didn't take me very long before I tried getting like a job. Especially because I was so new at it, and I recognized that I needed to learn from other people who were better at it than I was. So I started looking around, and I got a job in Phoenix at a small company called Retailer Web Services, and they were an agency that specialized in building websites for appliance and furniture retailers. And they hired me, bless them. And I went in and I learned how to, I learned to do a lot of things. I learned a lot about graphic design. I worked with people that were good at that skill. And I was able to learn a lot from them. And I was also customizing websites. By the time that I left, I was able to build anything that I wanted from scratch. So, I'm actually gonna go here. So after that, I decided I should probably finish college. I went and got my degree in multimedia development, and I had a minor in graphic design. I didn't know if I wanted to write code or if I wanted to make graphics. So the next thing I did was look for a better paying job. So I got hired at GoDaddy. And that was actually where I got introduced to UX, like in an official capacity. They had a giant UX team, and they had the whole process. There were the researchers, there were people who did wireframing and prototyping and everything else. And I fell in love with the idea that you could not only just make design decisions based on data that you learn, but adjust your designs and fix them based on what you learn about people. It was actually really cool. We had people that even went and like lived with customers for a couple of days so that they could just learn what those people were doing, not even just while they were working, but like in their downtime. Because our target market was like business owners that had to like build their own websites, and we're selling hosting and website building and stuff like that. So we had some really cool insights from that, and I never looked back. I loved it from that point on. So then along came kid number 2. I decided to go back to freelancing, and I did that full time for 3 years. And that was really great, really hard. I loved doing the work, but I did not enjoy the business aspect of it so much, and the finding of the clients and all of the networking and everything. I mean, networking is great, but it was a lot of like intentional. And it took me away from my kids more than I expected it to. So then I got back into the office environment. I went to Connexta where I met Mary. That was a government contractor, and that was a very different kind of user experience. We didn't have access to our clients there, so we had to be pretty scrappy and come up with a lot of different unique ways to collect information about our customers and what they were doing. But we were working on a really cool like geospatial search product. And I don't know, the product itself was a lot of fun. And then after that, I went to Leslie's, and I managed a small little environment there. And we had an e-commerce website. I love e-commerce because not only do we have a lot of access to our customers, but we have a lot of access to tons and tons of data. And I'm a very data-driven person. So, yeah, it's a very, kind of a little all over the place. But I ended up settling in UX because it kind of uses both parts of the brain, where you're creative and designing, but you're also using logic and problem solving all day long to get your job done. It's never boring. So that's pretty much my story. It's much shorter than theirs, but yeah. Okay. What's next?
So we have some questions that we can answer, or we can open it up to questions to you guys. Right now is what we're thinking. We've done a lot of talking. Yes.
What is your experience when you're moving from one platform to another? Let me clarify my question. So I'm using HoloLens for research, and is there any advice that you would say, well, the interaction that you're doing for a tablet or a phone, changes. So is there any advice that you would say, oh, for augmented reality, virtual reality, I think that, it's better to do this instead of that, things that you have learned in your career?
In my career, I'll answer and then I'll pass to you guys for yours. For me, because I'm a little older, I'm just getting into AI and stuff like that. And most of my experience has been with the web or the digital space or the customer experience. And we do have standards around whether you're designing for the tablet or the mobile device or the website. And we typically do start mobile first and move up because there's less you can fit on a mobile screen than you can on a desktop. And then a lot of times what you'll realize too with an app is it'll say, oh, if you want to edit that, we need to go to the desktop application versus the mobile app, because the mobile app is mobile, so it's to do those most important pieces. As for AR and VR, I know that's like 3D designing. I personally haven't done much of that just yet, but I don't
Mary, Teresa, do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, so, you guys can see this? Okay, cool. So for AR and VR, I really just try to keep the UX principles. So for, like Fitz Law, for example, how long so on a phone, it would be like how long it takes you to click a button. Same with a web page, like how long it takes you to perform an action, that's Fitz Law. When you're designing for AR and VR, it's the same kind of concept. You keep those primarily like UX-based concepts and be like, okay, how long is it going to take that eye movement to get, like if you're using the goggles, to get to that point that you want to touch? Reduce that. When you're doing AR, where are the menus? Those should be very visible. And just, yeah, keeping with those laws that you would on a mobile device, but just in a different environment.
I don't have a whole lot to add that they didn't already say, but one thing I think with VR in particular, because you're immersed in it, I know that sound, it has a bigger impact on what you're doing. For example, if you're building like a game or something like that, it's really easy to build games that are scary in VR because it's very easy to scare people with sound. So I think that's kind of an interesting difference between like doing a digital product where people aren't listening to the product. And sound design has a huge impact, I think, on the experience that customers have with it as well.
Thank you.
Yes?
Just to kind of add on to that, you also have to be very mindful of how you design things when it comes to movement, because you have a really high motion sickness likelihood when it comes to anybody experiencing VR and AR. So you have to be mindful about like lagging when it comes to any kind of graphics or any kind of 3D elements that you're interacting with, because most of the time you have a limit of like an hour to 2 hours in which a participant can experience VR, AR technology without getting sick. And there are people that are more prone to that than others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The first time I ever got motion sick was in a VR application. I've never been motion sick in my entire life, and I bought an application that it's like a roller coaster, and I thought it would just be this fun new thing to try, and I rode the roller coaster 3 times and got sick. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Yes.
Yes, I have a question. So, I really enjoyed hearing about your like journey and how you got there. And I guess a few of you guys are mentees, right? So can you tell me how mentorship played a role in your professional development?
So for me, being a mentor, I feel like I am learning from my mentee as much as they're learning from me. That's what I love about being a mentor. Because, like I said, I didn't have UX education when I went to school. So learning what you guys are learning in school is always fantastic for me. For my mentors, I was able to kind of like hone in on the things that I knew I needed to work on, such as storytelling, or in college it was typography. And just really finding someone that could really test the limits of my bounds of creativity and make me a better designer. So as much as I am a mentor to other people, I still want to be the mentee. Because I think, especially UX, like we can never learn enough. We're constantly evolving with the technology that's coming out, and we all have our limitations, so yeah.
Piggybacking off of that, have you found that there are ways to kind of keep up with what's going on with technology, and like what are some strategies that you use to do that? Because it is evolving so quickly that I feel like sometimes you're like, oh, I just learned this thing and now it's irrelevant because there's been an update and now it's no longer something that you can use.
Yeah, so I don't have like one specific source for that. It's really just being up to date with everything that's coming out, and then trying to see if anyone has any classes on that. So like even I will preach to go to any NNG conference all the time. They don't even have an AI course yet, because they're still collecting that data to create a better course. So it really is more like you have to kind of go out there on your own. You have to take that extra effort. I know Teresa and I have talked about it before, maybe even like putting out an hour a week to just be like, what's the newest trend? What can I learn about this? Is there a course on somewhere else that I can learn about that? So.
I'll also add on to that, I continue to freelance even though I don't do it full time. And part of the reason that I do that is to intentionally take on projects that are a little bit out of my realm of current capabilities. Like not too far out, I wanna feel confident that I can do the job, but I'm also intentionally trying to learn new things with the projects that I take on. And I think that helps a lot because it also gives motivation to continue learning when you know that somebody is depending on you to get it right. And the other thing that I also do is I sort of make a conscious effort when I'm skimming social media and stuff. I actually try to go on LinkedIn a lot because there's a lot of people that have I know there's a lot of thoughts and opinions, but it's a very good place to find out like new tools that people are trying out or what their experiences are with it, or get varying different opinions about different things. I find all sorts of really interesting things to like read and check out just from the people that I follow on there. And there's also a newsletter that I get, and I actually can't think of what it's called, but it's like a tech. It's got like a tech short form. It's just like little, like 1 or 2 sentences about an article, and then you can click into it to read more about it, and it does like a daily update. And so that I find is really helpful too. I don't read everything every day, but it helps me to understand the things that I might be needing to catch up on. And one other thing that I do regularly, Medium as well. I actually keep the little widget on my phone desktop, and it constantly has like new articles up and stuff. So it encourages me to do that when I'm, trying to entertain myself instead of doing something a little bit less productive. So I try to use up my excess free time, where I would, we all like to waste time sometimes, I think, and I try to just read stuff, and I put those things in front of me wherever I might be thinking about wasting time, and it helps a lot.
Yeah, that's great. And I think too, for me, it's a lot of these conferences, right, that really help with the new stuff that's coming out as well. And there's lots of them. We can probably put a link to many of the ones I follow and they follow, that tells you what's new and coming out. I mean, even just in the hallway, I saw the eye tracking glasses, and I'm like, what's that? And how do we incorporate that into our research? And everything. So I think that's great. Also, UXPA is an awesome networking area where a lot of people are doing things like that as well, and you can collaborate, network, and learn what everybody else is doing in that group. And a lot of times they have a lot of articles there for that as well. Yes?
What advice would you have for students who are interested in UX and trying to take their first steps, maybe build a portfolio or get that first internship?
That's a great idea. Actually, my daughter just got her master's in UX, as I said, and that first job is a toughie. It's hard to get into the industry because a lot of people really want those seniors that can hop in and do the work. And so she's struggling too, but there are those companies that really do need those junior designers in, and getting those, I would say, work with your university. They have a lot of programs to connect in companies with students for internships. A lot of times those internships can also turn into jobs. That's really the whole purpose of an internship. And then, UXPA is a great resource for networking too, and getting involved. If you want to volunteer on that too, you'll meet a lot of people. That's what my daughter's doing as well. She helped us, she's helping us build the website. So just getting out there really and networking and and using your resources. A lot of times that first job is a word of mouth.
Also, just a unique piece of my story, I didn't actually get hired into a UX position for my first UX position. I was hired as a graphic designer, and I brought my UX knowledge with me and sort of advocated for a UX process and transformed the position that I was in into a UX position. So if you're in a situation like that where you can sort of evangelize UX within your organization, that can be a pathway to get your first experience as well.
That's a really good point, actually, because I took 10 years off, which I didn't mention in my slide, to raise my girls while I was doing my business, and then to get back into the industry. And this is what I tell my daughter too, there's small businesses. And if you go into a small business and you're a UXer of one, you know more than anybody else at that company. And so you can go in confidently and share what you know and practice it, because you know more than anybody there. So those small businesses are great places to get your feet wet in UX.
Yeah, I would say mass apply to everything you see. And then also diversify your portfolio a little bit. So I see a lot of portfolios that kind of like look the same UI kind of design on everything that's coming in, same kind of like, I don't know, just style. So try to break out of your style. We see like a lot of like dog apps too. So like maybe don't do a dog app. So like anything that's just kind of out of the box, kind of break your standards. Try something new. Like if you're, for me, I was really into sports, like try a wedding website. That was really difficult for me. So something that's like completely different than you're good at, what you're known for, that really breaks that style. And we like diversity in like products as well. So like, you know, have a mobile, have a web app. If you want to like even make up an idea for like AI, everyone's hiring for AI right now. No one knows what AI really is. So if you just say AI and you're like, I did this and it integrates like ChatGPT and it integrates all these other AI services, like that's going to be impressive in a portfolio right now. But that's keeping up with that trend of what is the newest and greatest thing.
So I'm a PhD student in human factors, and I wanted to know, like you mentioned about the use of human factors in UX, but how can we specifically transition from human factors to UX research or UX design?
I feel like they almost go hand in hand. So I feel like, so are you trying to go into UX research or UX design?
So I think I use some UX research methods in my own research, but it's not like a UX thing as such. We just do like human participant studies. So I think the first step would be UX research, and after that would be UX design. But I personally don't have much design experience. I'm taking some classes in my university, but yeah, this was my question. Especially in the current job market where I think it's quite competitive.
I feel like with a human factors degree, just with your research, you could definitely be hired as a UX designer. Or not designer, researcher. So definitely start with like just applying for a UX researcher job. I have a graphic design degree and I'm a UX person. So like, you know, if you have like a foundation in something UX related, like human factors, that would be great for getting into research. And then for design, you would have to build out that portfolio. And with working in like a UX group with UX designers, that you could totally ask them for advice. You could use the projects that you're working on with them as your own things in your portfolio and say, this is what I did to help this one part of the design. So that's what I would recommend. So yeah.
Something else too, and I'll add to that is, for example, when I worked at GoDaddy and they had a large UX team, we had people that just did wireframes and separate people that did UI design. So some of the UX designers don't necessarily have to be skilled at like photoshopping amazing things or anything like that. What UX is really about is that process of how to solve a problem using human psychology. So if you can wireframe things out. You might also be able to get into the design piece with a capability of being able to do the problem solving part, and then the UI design can come later. And I think that is probably more true for like larger organizations, where small ones will be more wanting somebody that can do like both. But that, I think that's also a way to kind of like start moving in that direction from research as well.
And I would say too, I work with a lot of what we call career switchers. So one person in my mind that comes to mind is she was in geology, right? But that's tons of research, tons and tons of research. And so it really, I mean, she picked up the research really easy and was able to go into UX. And then what she brought was something that none of the UXers had, was that other knowledge. Kind of like when I bring in my architecture and I can associate it to something outside of just what UX is, and you can see it in different ways. So it almost gives you a leg up in a way, I think, by switching, because you've got one skill set that you can combine with the other one and then morph into it. There's a ton of career switchers, and a lot of them I've met through UXPA or Interaction Design Foundation. Yeah, they're rock stars in the field.
The Interaction Design Foundation, by the way, I'll second that. If you guys aren't part of that, it is an amazing educational organization. I think it's like $120 a year to be a member, but they give you access to all of their classes, and they're very good. And they're kind of timeless content. It's not like what is trendy today. It's the kind of stuff that you take with you through your career. So it's really, really good stuff.
And Nielsen Norman Group, they actually advocate for it, and they will actually put some of their classes on there even. So they work together, which is really great. Yes.
I just have a really quick question. You just brought it up, but in group, Norman Nielsen Group certifications, do you feel like that helped elevate you in the job market, or do you feel like, just your experience with that?
I think for me, it was an extra for me to get in there. It's good to understand the foundations, how they work, and then there's a lot of professionals that just have tips and tricks that can help you get better at it. It's also like a lot of times we talk about a T structure in management. So as UX, you're a generalist, right? And then you pick a certain area that you really specialize in and go deep on. I think NNG for me, what was really good was to expand that. So I was really good in interaction design, but I wanted to learn more about the management piece, and I wanted to learn more about maybe doing workshops. So it's really just expanding that skill set and making yourself more of like a cone structure, which is what was great for me. I'll pass it to Mary and Teresa.
Yeah, so Teresa can attest, that's one of the reasons she hired me. So it does help with finding another job, but to the same point, like I'm actually specialized in all of their specialties at NNG. So I just really enjoyed learning every little bit of UX information that I can get my hands on, and I still use a lot of those research tactics when I am out in the field, because I didn't have research experience, I had design experience. So yeah, just everything that they're teaching is fantastic. And I'm always looking through their class schedules and seeing what they're publishing that's new. Like, I think they have a VP of UX now course, and I'm like, oh man, I have to take that. So yeah, everything they have is a jewel. So yeah.
They have a lot of white papers too. You have to purchase them, but it's all the research and everything that you can use for your UX as well.
Okay. So I am a unique one here. I have actually never attended an NNG conference, and I don't have any certifications through them, so I can't speak to whether it's helped me or not, but I can say as a person who's hired other UXers, it does help a little bit. One of the questions that I asked Mary when I hired her, I was very curious about what resources do you use to do your research? And what I'm looking for when I ask that question is, are you familiar with UX professional organizations? Are you getting your advice off of like a random blog somewhere, or are you familiar with like who the professionals are? So I think for me, it's not so much do you have a certification or not, but are you familiar with the resources that we should probably know about in our industry, and they are like an authority organization, so I think it's important to know them.
Thank you. Yes.
Are there any key skills that have transferred between the different positions you've had, UX or otherwise?
Skill sets or learnings or?
Just anything that's stayed relevant,
Oh.
between, like, anything that is as a senior undergrad that you would recommend knowing about, that has been essential or useful to have known for any of your positions?
For me, actually, it's the foundations. So what are those foundations of the UX? Because no matter what company you go to, I was talking to Mary about this earlier, no matter what company you go to, you have to customize it to that company. No company is going to do it the same way. No company is going to follow the same process. My journey was all about like trying to find that perfect process that, you know, what is that process? What is that process? And every company, I was like, maybe they know the process. Maybe they know the process. You know, I know what I've done, but I'm not sure this is the right process to be doing. And I went all the way to Google, and this is me 15 years into my career, and I'm still looking for this perfect process across all the companies that I've worked at. And I went to Google and I was doing their interviews. I got to the end. I had an 8-panel interview in a conference room and then 8 individual interviews throughout the day. And all of it's recorded, and you're graded on it, except for the lunch interview. And so I went to the lunch interview, and they're like, you can ask anything you want, it won't be recorded, you know, and so I said, okay. And I asked her, I go, first, how do you like working at Google? And she liked it, it was great. She had come from Frog, which is a really high-end agency that did all of Apple's stuff. And then I said, okay, what is the process that you guys follow here? Because you're Google, like you've got to have this process, right? What is the process you guys use? And she looked at me, she started laughing, and she goes, they don't have one. And I'm like, what? And she goes, no, that's why we're hiring you. And she's like, you come with the experience, you come with the process that you know it works. So over my career, I had been building this process, and it was working, but it was all by trial and error and what was working at different companies, and then how I applied that to the next one and the next one and the next one. And that's what they're really hiring it for. There is no perfect process. It's really learning that foundation and sticking true to the foundation, knowing what the foundation is, and then modifying it for each place you go to. I would say UX is also kind of like dating someone, right? You've got to really understand the company, you've got to understand what their likes are and their dislikes, and everybody's different. So, but the foundation keeps you steady.
We only have a minute, so we'll be around all day to answer any other questions that you guys have. But it was a pleasure to be here today. We do have a sign-up sheet for the portfolio reviews on one of the bulletin boards out there. We have business cards everywhere, so if you find one, it's yours. And yeah, so we can stick around for another like 10 minutes if you guys have any more questions, but it is 10:45 and I don't want to keep you guys if you have another session you'd love to chat to. So, yeah.
And we have a happy hour later too, that we can answer questions.
Yeah, we will be hanging out in the Arthur's Bar 4:45 for about an hour. If you want to come talk more and so forth, we have a bulletin board on each side. The front hall, there's a sign-in sheet for the reviews